Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Eastern Consolidated, M&T Bank, Sterling National Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Customers Bank, Aerial Property Advisors, Perfect Building Maintenance. Additional funding has been provided by AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, AVR Realty Company, Avison Young, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Mortgage Lending, Citizens Bank, Cohen Equities, Colliers International NYC, Collins Building Services, Connect One Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Dime Community Bank, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Genova Burns, Handro Properties, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investments, Hodges Ward Elliott Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, New Banks, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Polsonelli, Rosewood Realty Services, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Knackle Group at Cushman & Wakefield, Maringoff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
It's called the Garden State. Must mean they do a lot of farming. But today, I've assembled this group of real estate leaders and a banker, who, if you didn't have the banker, we couldn't have any show, over here to talk about what's happening in the state of New Jersey. My guests, they include Jeremy Kaplan, who is the COO of KRE Group, Eugene Paolino, who is a partner at Genova Burns, Michael Seeve, who is the president of Mountain Development. On the other side, Jason Kaplan, who's the president of the Kaplan Companies. And last but not least, my friend Kevin Cummings, who's the president and CEO of Investors Bank. Since you're the guy with the money, how do you see the market? How do you see the opportunities there in the different real estate asset classes in New Jersey? And what do you like lending on and what don't you like lending on?
Sure.
It's a tough question I put.
Well, it's a good question. It's good to be here too, Mike. Transit development, multifamily, very strong, whether it's suburban or in Hudson County, things are moving along nicely. A little concerned about maybe a little oversupply, and there might be some stabilization going on in the market, but the demand is good. The millennials want to be in the downtown, so that demographic, and then the baby boom is moving out of suburbia into closer to the city. And then you have the industrial, some of the good things happening with the finally coming to completion, the Bayonne Bridge, the widening of the Panama Canal. That opens up the ports in Newark and Elizabeth, and that'll certainly drive some of or maintain the strong performance of the industrial market.
So it sounds to me like you're going to have more competition from banks saying there are opportunities in New Jersey.
Sure. I think the banking market in New Jersey is very healthy. And not only local players,
that's what I'm
but
saying.
the national
the
players.
National
too.
players
Yeah.
are coming in there.
Yeah.
Michael, since you have a lot of office and industrial, how do you see the market today?
I think it's strong. I think it's the strongest it's been in a couple of years. I think that the way office users use space today is so different than it was 10 years ago. It's forcing companies that need the right space to select the right buildings and make real commitments there. It's very collaborative with owners who have to purpose these buildings to really be contemporary. So it's given rise to lots of great opportunities for us, lots of great companies to work with.
Since Jeremy has both office and industrial, would you say it's becoming more of a owner's market on the office market, or is it the tenants still have a good opportunity to negotiate good terms on their leases?
There's a lot of product in New Jersey for office space, and that creates a dynamic where the buyer, the tenant, still has a lot of leverage. But to your point, there is a demand also for landlords to be flexible, to create environments that are more conducive to today's workspace, whether that's open area, larger parking lots. And so with landlords, it's not just about price. If you can create a product that really meets
the
their
environment,
needs,
okay.
then you can...
What about concession? Okay, how much concession do you have to give someone to move into one of your buildings and your buildings? And then we'll ask the conciliere what he has to say about that. What type of...
Almost none. You know, in our experience, tenants are looking for something very specific, which are buildings that can meet these needs, whether it's density or ceiling heights, light, air, connectivity. If you've got that product, and there's a lot of product in the market, but not all of it is contemporary, if you've got good contemporary product, you can attract good contemporary companies, and I find the negotiations very balanced.
Okay. Gene, how do you see it?
Location. I have clients that have negotiated fairly good rent concessions. I think it is more in balance now than it has been for some time. It was, previous to that, tenants had a little bit of a leverage. I think it's getting better now. The office market the vacancy rate is still not as good as it could be. So overall, I'm optimistic the market's getting better.
The Gold Coast has been a big neighborhood and a big factor in the area. You guys are very heavy in the Gold Coast yourself, and you have a strong operation in Hudson County and so on. At one time, when you would lease an apartment in Jersey City, it was the low-cost alternative. It was $25, $30 a foot. Today, we're talking about $45, $50.
Yeah, even higher in some places.
Right. So, I mean, when you're at that point, don't many people say, I'll go a little bit further away and maybe go to, to Jason's property, which is more, affordable? Because what I consider a number of the Kaplan properties, which are really beautiful properties, they're workforce housing, okay? And under workforce housing, you're talking maybe $30 a foot as compared to Jersey City at $50 a foot. How do you look at that, both of you and the banker, with that situation? Because there's a certain point of, people living in Manhattan, they got priced out of Manhattan, they went to Brooklyn. Now they're getting priced out of Brooklyn, they're going to Queens. So the question is, certain people are going to get priced out of Jersey City eventually.
Eventually. I think, though, Jersey City has a lot of things going for it. One of the big differences between, when Jersey City first became a draw for multifamily and today is that the overall quality of life, and I don't mean in terms of the character. Jersey City's always had great character, but just amenities.
Especially since these two
neighborhoods,
guys were born.
For sure, of course.
Or characters in it.
I recognize my group. And, restaurants, just quality of life, things on the street level with doggy daycare, children's daycare, all these things have grown up a lot around these buildings. And so it's no longer just about price differential. But at the end of the day, the commuting that exists between Jersey City and New York is really what drives so much of our tenant base, which works east of Jersey City. And so you're right that from a price point, it can't always compete with parts west. But if you work at the World Trade Center and your commute is 10 minutes away, you get a premium for that.
I'm still an advocate, and I'm positive on Jersey City, but my only question is the pricing, which has gone up, based on the fact. I mean, plus you're building beautiful buildings. It's a different market over there. About 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I did shows on Jersey City and I had the left racks, they had to give away daycare. They had to give services. They had to bring it in because nothing was there. Okay, the retail wasn't over there. Let's talk about your type of property, which is more on a transit-oriented development, either the train or closer to the highways.
Sure, more suburban, more towns, high barriers to entry. So we're competing with product that's 50, 60 years old, that's dated, not updated, poor landlord updating of the property. So when we come in, we build a beautiful new product. It's really widely accepted by the market. Our occupancies are 95+%. We're trying to target more desirable towns with good schools and near transportation corridors, whether it's the buses or trains. And we just found that there's a voracious appetite and big demand for nice new product.
How are we seeing the municipalities, Gene, provide incentives for owner developers today in the state?
Well, I could speak to what's being done in the Hudson County, Jersey City area. There's an array of incentives. I mean, if you are talking about whether it's pilots, payments in lieu of taxes, which is a tax abatement, or redevelopment area bonds, or urban enterprise zones, which got the sales taxes, or even the state incentives, the ERG grants and things like that. There's a whole constellation of incentives that developers can get. Can I go back to the question of whether Jersey City or cities like Jersey City are being priced out? The interesting thing, I think, in Jersey City is that there are areas of the city which is beginning to attract developers from Brooklyn, for instance, where it's not pioneering, but it's challenging areas, and it's not the Gold Coast.
Square?
Well, that's one. There's other areas, but these developers are optimistic. They are going in and developing 200 units, 60 units, 100 units.
Okay, and the price point is at 35.
Is substantially lower. And
Land cost is cheaper than buying in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So and serviced by a light rail. So the attraction is there. It's not the Gold Coast. It's not the high rise looking over the river with the path station nearby, but it's still attracting people that work in the city. I've always asked the question of how long is that going to be generated? And as long as New York City's capacity for throwing off people to work in the city is there, Jersey City and cities like it are going to be fine.
Kevin, this is appropriate for you, especially since you're the official bank of the Prudential Center. What's really happening? And Michael, you have property nearby, so I want a couple of people to chime in on this. What's happening in Newark? I mean, as I said prior to the show, I had the mayor on a couple of months ago. I think he's really trying over there. There's the Teachers Village. I had Ben Corman, who bought the stadium. I had Mark Burson, who's always been a big advocate over there. How do you, and also as developers, how do you look at Newark?
Yeah, I think Newark is quietly moving forward.
Because it has great transportation.
Yeah, it has great transportation. It has to bring in more multifamily. You have the NJ Pack project, finally got off the ground.
Right, it only took about 11 years.
Yeah, only about 11 years. And I think, when they bring in, a little more of the restaurants and just create more of a community in that business district, it's gonna get there, but it's just taking a long time.
Investors opening up more branches in Newark?
We have 4 in Newark already.
Okay, so
we're in pretty good shape.
Michael, I mean, there are opportunities. You look at opportunities. You said you're buying something, next week, closing on a different property.
Yeah, I would have said, Newark, and Kevin's a perfect example. There are a lot of people and a lot of institutions with real resources that just have a lot of goodwill for these projects like Newark, these areas, that recognize the potential. And you're right, they take longer than people would like to see them come around. But Newark is one of, I think, a couple of New Jersey cities that just has really tremendous public and private sponsorship that's enabling some of these projects to happen. And as they unfold, I think you'll really sort of see that those cities start to bloom.
Jeremy, KRE has been around since 1979. You've been around the state. How about Newark?
Newark, I think, has all the potentials that have been outlined. For a lot of it, it's for us, a company like ours, it's also about where we've spent our time over the last decade getting well informed on the marketplace. And so our concentrations in Jersey City is because we believe in Jersey City and we continue to have a lot going on there. I think Newark has a lot of potential, but for now we're continuing to focus on Jersey City.
Gene, the headquarters of your firm is based in Newark. I mean, Angelo made the decision a number of years ago and has been committed to the area.
Yeah, we're invested there. We see a number of large very forward-looking projects happening in Newark. Newark is a difficult case, but I think it's coming along. I think it's NJPAC was a big success. The Haynes development, the Haynes building development, everything that's going around the Prudential Center. There is remarkable growth there. It's not at the same level yet as Jersey City is, but I have hopes.
I mean, great transportation. What about you?
I think I'm probably on the same page as Jeremy. I'm a little more hesitant from a residential standpoint until I see, the crime and safety numbers go down. We've seen, success in Harrison. I see, areas around it kind of perking up before, we're ready to jump into the Newark
Let's
market.
talk about, let's talk about Bayonne, Karlstadt, some of the emerging areas. How do you? You're invested in those.
Yeah, we're a
markets
big
lot.
believer. We have a smaller project, just under 100 units, that we've opened up to kind of test and taste the market, see where rents are, because if we were 2 miles up the road in Hoboken or Jersey City, we would probably be getting double the rent. So the rents haven't quite achieved where the rest of Hudson County is, but we see tremendous potential there. We have a large-scale project on the books, and as Kevin said before, with the bridge lifting, a lot of projects in the pipeline. We have a lot of faith and a lot of hope for Bayonne. I think
Mike,
that's the next.
What do you think of those?
We're on the other end of the county. We're in Secaucus. But, people that we think of as being very smart investors are clearly invested in those markets. So I think you're wise to bring them up.
Speaking of that, what's happening in the West Patterson area?
I get asked that question constantly.
That's where you are.
It's at the highway-oriented suburban office is really, I think, very hot right now. People want density. People want transformational space. If I'm a 50,000 square foot user in New York City and I'm going to lease 2 floors of a skyscraper, I'm going to get my name on the elevator bank, maybe. In New Jersey, for 50 to 100,000 square feet, you can build an entire new building. You can have
But you bring up another point which I failed to bring up, but the incentives that the state of New Jersey and certain of the parts with the Grow Green and the opportunities really brought some companies from New York to New Jersey.
They're jobs driven. So particularly for office space, if you're populating a building with people who are, generously compensated or compensated at the higher end of the array, and you're near transit, or even if not, you're going to qualify for, and you're making a long-term commitment, you're going to qualify for the highest level of support from the state. So for certain projects, they can be transformational. But in my view, even without them, you're seeing tremendous activity in parts of the state that didn't enjoy it until recently, because there's so much opportunity to create environment. And I think that's more important than the last dollar or two on these transactions.
The Bellworks project down
What?
in Homedale, the Homedale Bellworks project.
Yes.
That's moving along, from what I hear, is very successful.
There's another, the Fort Monmouth. The Officers Club was sold. There's development over there, and you're in Marlborough. You're in the North Brunswick area. It's not right over there, but it's not that far. What's happening in the Princeton corridor, which I remember,
We finished a building in West Windsor about a year ago. It was a spec building, which we leased before completion. I think it's got to be one of the strongest markets in New Jersey. It's a global market. It transcends, I think, New Jersey. The companies that choose to make major commitments there are some of the finest, most sort of discriminating companies in the world, and it's because of the workforce and the university and the connectivity. It's an outstanding place to do business.
We've actually mothballed a bunch of for sale projects, and the one that we opened up is in the South Brunswick market, which is not far from there, and only because of the demand of Princeton and that desirability is, it's been successful. Other than that, we wouldn't really open any for sale.
You guys in 2006, 2007 decided to reduce the amount of for sale developments. You've really not been involved with the for sale developments. How do you see, and this is a combination for the for sale people and the banker, do you see the opportunities to go into the for sale market now? Even though interest rates are slightly going up, it's still a good time for someone.
So in the suburban markets, not so much, because that's just never where we've done a lot of for sale. We have done condos in Jersey City, and condos in Jersey City took a breather for a while, but people are starting to come back in a meaningful way. And it's an interesting corollary to the way New York condo market is softening. But in the same way how the Brooklyn investors are coming in and seeing land prices that are very low, on a relative basis, brand new luxury condos in Jersey City that are a short train away are very, very affordable. And so there is, I think, an opportunity. You're not talking about 1,000-unit condo jobs, but in some of the smaller projects to really go in
Let me
there.
give you a statistic that recently happened. I was on the phone with a buddy of mine who happens to be in the studio business, but also in the residential development, called Silver Cup Studios. And they're building one of the few condo developments in Long Island City. No models, nothing. They're 70% sold because there's a demand in that market. I can see the Jersey City market coming back on that situation.
As rents go up, the probability of a sale, a for sale product, gets it, comes back eventually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, we see it's selective in select towns. Yeah, as Kevin was going to say, the condos the first product to go out and the last product to come back. What we've seen is single families in strong markets, strong towns, good schools near trains are selling. The economics for those secondary and tertiary towns it doesn't work.
How do you look at it, with the aging baby boomers, since you and I are in that category, not Gene, okay, but with the aging baby boomer population, you have two areas which New Jersey has a possibility: the active adult communities, one, and the assisted living. How do you see that as a banker, and then I'd like to see as the developers?
Yeah, the assisted living we've been active in. Our healthcare group has been very active there. And then on the baby boomers moving into the urban areas, what I see in that demographic is they'll downsize their suburban home, get an apartment in Hoboken or Manhattan, and then buy something along the Jersey Shore too. And so it's a quality of life issue. They'll spend the weekdays. Your former partner from Spring Lake did something like that.
Right.
Sold a house in Essex Fells, and then sized up down in Spring Lake.
Because what's happened, assisted living in Long Island is rather heavy. In New York City today, right now, one place called the Esplanade recently sold for relatively high price on 73rd and Amsterdam, and two other assisted living properties are being built. One is on 56th Street and Lexington Avenue, and another one is on 95th Street and 2nd Avenue. And before the plans are out, there's a demand because people don't want to stay in Florida. They want to be near their family and so on. So I'd say the opportunity to be, I think, if Jersey City had the right opportunity, I could see an assisted living over there, a high-price assisted living.
What we've seen in New Jersey, there was a lot of stuff approved back in the 90s and the early part of the 2000s. It was overapproved. The towns liked them because it didn't generate school children traffic. So a lot of it didn't get built. There were some regulations that came to convert it to market rate, but there hasn't been that much stuff being built. I think developers are starting to re-look at it because there hasn't been any built in the last 10 years, that there may be some built-up demand, but I don't think there's like a huge demand for it.
Well, what happened in the recession
Right.
was the house they were selling went from $1 million to $700,000.
And they couldn't use
and
the
then
money,
they didn't
right? So,
want to buy the condo for
Right.
sale. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Michael, let's talk about conversions of the office space to industrial and so on. How do you see that?
It's a new phenomena, but there's such tremendous demand from companies that want to take advantage of the port and the New Jersey roadway system and the proximity to half of the country that you're seeing people take some of these older format office buildings that would have needed effectively conversion money to make them contemporized anyhow, come off the table. And because of the parking from office, there's probably more land to play around with than there would have been before. And a lot of, I think, very sort of design, thoughtful developers are putting up some very smart-looking industrial projects. Distribution really more than classic industrial.
What about, I brought it up in the green room, but I think, one of the items which has always been driven partially by people who live in New York and other markets is retail. Okay, true, we do know that brick and mortar retail is hurting, but there are still opportunities over there.
What we see more than anything else is infill downtown retail. We think of New Jersey as like a series of communities. People love their community retail. People love to go out and eat. People love to walk around on the weekend with their kids and buy a book or buy a shirt or whatever. So we see more and more emphasis on, real classic infill service, family-oriented retail all over the state.
But I think that related to what Kevin said before on the transit-oriented developments. Many of these transit-oriented, Morristown, for example, Maplewood and some other markets, you've had the opportunities where you made like the Village, exactly what you're talking about. You know, some of them have the houses, above the stores and so on the community. A little bit like the Jersey Shore, in Ocean County, I'm thinking of.
Long Branch?
Pier Village.
Long Branch.
Pier Village,
and
Pier
Long
Village,
Branch.
yeah.
But,
I think you see, the transit towns are obviously super desirable, but even without it, New Jersey is so dense, and there's affluence in these communities, and more than that, there's affinity for these communities. I think people settle in New Jersey and feel very strongly about where they live. I think you see it all over the state, that the right kinds of retailers can really succeed because there's buying power and a desire to get out of the house and walk around and see people and leave your car, and it's very social.
What happened with the plan for the change in the estate tax law in New Jersey?
It went through
passed.
with the gas tax.
Right.
Which,
Yeah.
yes.
So it passed through, which is...
With the gas tax.
Would-
yeah,
Yeah.
with the-
Would you explain to my audience what that did for citizens in the state?
Well, I'm not an estate attorney, but it lowered the state's take.
We'll
on
go
it.
back to his days as an accountant.
No, it eliminated the estate tax and the inheritance tax, and it was
Stop the flight.
it
of
stopped the flight. Its purpose
Florida.
was the 6 months in a day,
Right.
moving to Florida so that you could
So this way you'll have more people paying taxes, but they don't have to worry about the estate tax
exactly.
That's right.
provision over there.
That's
Yeah.
right.
About a year ago, with the help of Angelo and Gene's firm, I brought a discussion about the casinos. How do you ever see casino gambling coming to the rest of the state, and what's your thoughts about the Meadowlands?
Whether it'll ever happen, I don't know. I think for where we operate, especially in Jersey City, there'd be some elements of quality of new development that will go along with it, but it's also what's existing in Jersey City right now is going well, and to create that dynamic in there would be a change. So,
Right. Kev?
The American Dream project is quite a project, and it'll be very interesting to see how that gets going. They're getting near completion, and it's going to be a game changer.
Mike, any ideas about American Dream? I mean, the American Dream is huge.
We're invested, just a couple of blocks away from American Dream. I think it's its own story. Setting it aside, where the Meadowlands, the traditional Meadowlands, it's actually one of the strongest markets in New Jersey.
But it's because of the convenience to the city.
But it's taken on a life of its own. If you drive through the Meadowlands now, there's residential, there's retail, there's office, there's data centers, there's destination, there's movie theaters. It doesn't owe its success anymore like it once did.
You brought up a couple of years ago when you were on the show data centers. Are we seeing more data centers, or is it leaving?
It's definitely not leaving, and I think the data centers that landed in New Jersey are full and doing well. I think it's one of those businesses that moves a little bit in cycles, but it's one of the great under-heralded New Jersey stories.
So I say, in summation, it sounds like I don't have my crystal apple, which I sometimes have, but it seems that the lights are shining, being positive in the state of New Jersey. And hopefully, when I start my 17th season in September, you'll all come back and we'll be able to talk about it. I'd like to thank Jeremy, Gene, Michael, Jason, and Kevin, and I'll see you next week.